This might be the worst year for the auto industry. Just look at what has happened already. Dealer lots that once hosted spirited weekend sales events turned into silent parking lots of unsold vehicles. Once prized trucks and sport utility vehicles now sat untouched under fluttering banners that had lost their allure. And for millions of consumers, the American dream of car ownership began to feel less like an accomplishment and more like an albatross. In this video, we delve into the heart of the 2025 car market crisis. From the assembly lines of Detroit to the auction floors in the Midwest, we'll follow the cascading failures that turned a once robust industry into a cautionary tale. We'll explore the lives of workers suddenly out of jobs, of consumers drowning in negative equity, and of communities struggling to find their footing as the foundation of their local economies crumbles beneath them. Tariffs, the match that lit the fuse. As the 2025 collapse gained momentum, a sudden wave of tariffs emerged like gasoline thrown onto a campfire. Vehicles assembled in Mexico or Canada were especially vulnerable, catching manufacturers off guard. Brands that relied on cross-border supply chains faced harsh financial penalties nearly overnight. Trucks such as the Toyota Tacoma, the Toyota Tundra, and the Toyota RAV4 found themselves at the epicenter of steep price hikes. Buyers blinked at new window stickers. Gone were the days when these dependable models had manageable costs. Stuck with either absorbing these additional fees or passing them along to consumers, automakers held frantic meetings. Production teams struggled to reroute parts. Executives looked at spreadsheets showing possible relocation to domestic factories. But the numbers were daunting. Building entire facilities in the United States would mean navigating higher wages and infrastructure costs, potentially erasing profits for years to come. Meanwhile, dealers downstream felt the immediate shock. Higher manufacturers suggested retail prices forced them to confront already nervous shoppers. Within weeks, the blame game began. Political leaders defended tariffs as essential to protecting homegrown jobs, while critics argued they were simply crushing dealerships and inflating costs for everyday families. This tug-of-war made headlines, painting a grim picture of a once thriving market that was now at the mercy of unpredictable policy changes. Potential customers, alarmed by the surging figures on every price sheet, delayed or canceled their plans to purchase. That reluctance only increased the inventory glut, filling storage yards with unsold trucks and pushing dealerships further into distress. The new tariffs accelerated a meltdown that had been slowly forming beneath the surface. Instead of a gentle correction, the market now faced a violent shock. At manufacturer plants, shifting timelines led to cancellations of certain trim packages. While specialized workers experienced layoffs, the entire ecosystem felt unsteady. Beyond the immediate financial blow, there was a profound sense of betrayal among loyal buyers who had trusted brand consistency for decades. Would these companies endure, or would the relentless cycle of price hikes and reduced consumer confidence become their downfall? As tariff-induced chaos took hold, dealerships began a desperate race against time. But that frantic scramble would only escalate the crisis, from overflow to desperation. Dealers' deadly game. After tariffs hit, dealer lots turned into parking islands. Shiny trucks and sedans sat unsold under banners, offering discounts buyers still couldn't afford. Floor plan interest, once a manageable cost, ballooned into a crippling monthly drain. The more vehicles that sat unsold, the more dealers had to pay in financing fees, which fueled an endless loop of stress and short-term fixes. Consequently, they tried everything. Zero-interest financing for a handful of months, longer loan terms to reduce monthly payments, and a constant barrage of flashy weekend sales. But potential buyers, bombarded by news of falling resale values, chose caution. Why commit to a $30,000 purchase if it might lose half its worth in barely a year? Under pressure, some dealers grew aggressive with trade-in offers or took on risky subprime loans. Others refused to budge on certain models, hoping to salvage minimal profit rather than face devastating losses. Sales managers adopted heated tactics, from scarcity pitches, "we cannot replace these once they are gone," to emotional appeals about future tariff spikes. Yet these moves often backfired. As frustration mounted, store morale plummeted, with senior staff leaving for stable industries. But when dealers finally shifted their strategies, an unforeseen twist in the used car market sent shockwaves throughout the industry. I've done the hard digging so you don't have to. So if this helps, hit subscribe. It only takes a sec, but fuels my next deep dive. Now let's get into the details. details. The used car paradox: sky-high prices, then a crash. Initially, anxious buyers, turned off by inflated new car costs, flocked to pre-owned options. That surge in demand drove second-hand prices through the roof, making it seem as though the used market might be immune to the turmoil raging elsewhere. Private sellers seized the moment, listing vehicles at sums that might have appeared comical just a year earlier. In those frantic weeks, some proud owners cashed out with a tidy profit. Yet the triumph was short-lived. An avalanche of trade-ins from people ditching large monthly payments arrived at dealerships, upsetting the carefully balanced supply-demand equation. Families, spooked by talk of plunging residual values, hurried to unload newer vehicles in exchange for cheaper, older models. As more cars poured in, prices began to slip. Then came the wave of negative equity, with countless owners owing more than their cars were worth. Lenders grew wary, repossessions began climbing, and vehicles towed away under the cover of darkness re-entered the used supply chain at discount auctions. The market was soon flooded with repossessed units, meaning there were simply too many cars and not enough qualified buyers willing to take on yet another loan. Prices tumbled in a downward spiral. Many dealers, fresh off their new car losses, realized they were also in trouble with used stock that might never sell at the bloated price they had initially paid. As the dominoes began to fall on the used car sector, the personal toll of the recession was about to emerge in full force. Job cuts and silent factories. Factories that once roared with purpose now lie cold and still, their conveyor belts halted and their assembly lines abandoned. What used to be a pillar of economic pride for countless towns has instead become a symbol of uncertainty and heartbreak. Enormous production complexes in regions once celebrated for their automotive heritage have slowly faded into hushed shadows, leaving workers grappling with the sudden loss of livelihood. Engineers, line technicians, and even cafeteria staff now face the sobering reality of a job market that is no longer willing or able to absorb them. Entire neighborhoods built around these factories struggle to cope with the shock. The absence of steady income has rippled into local businesses, forcing independent cafes and shops to shut their doors. Fathers and mothers, once confident in their roles as breadwinners, find themselves in endless queues for scarce positions that do not begin to match their old wages. Despair creeps through these communities, accompanied by a feeling of betrayal. How could once mighty employers cast aside so many loyal individuals so suddenly? Stories of perseverance dot the horizon. Yet those moments of courage cannot fully offset the dread. Some displaced workers consider uprooting their families in search of automotive roles elsewhere, though such moves often prove risky and expensive. Others shift to completely unrelated fields, clinging to any available path that might salvage hope for the future. Even so, the sting of disappointment lingers. As production lines fall silent and economies around them shrink, an even heavier burden is forming, one that lies far beyond the factory floor. The story continues as we peer into the widening sinkhole of automotive debt, where personal finances become entangled in a crisis of epic proportions. Caught underwater. Across countless households, drivers find themselves in precisely that predicament, owing significantly more on their vehicles than those vehicles could ever command on the open market. This phenomenon, commonly called negative equity, has become the secret torment of many car owners who previously felt secure in their decisions to borrow, only to discover that their assets are depreciating far faster than they can pay them off. Monthly obligations, often in the high hundreds of dollars, leave little room for basic living costs such as groceries or medical bills. Families who long counted on a reliable sedan or sport utility vehicle are now stuck with a seemingly endless loan. Attempts to trade in or refinance fail because the dealership sees no upside in accepting a vehicle whose balance is higher than its appraised worth. The result? Stagnation. Parents keep an aging car on the road even if maintenance becomes astronomical or reliability plummets. Spouses argue over whether to sell the car at a steep loss, while fresh medical bills pile up at the kitchen table. Neighbors watch each other's struggles, worried they may be next if a sudden expense topples their own delicate budget. It is a vicious loop. High-interest car payments trap families in mounting debt, robbing them of the financial freedom to relocate for better jobs or invest in more economical transportation. And just as households strain under unsustainable obligations, a more visceral dread lurks on the horizon, one that arrives unannounced before the sun even rises. Repo nightmares. Picture the shock of stumbling outside at first light to find nothing in the driveway but empty space. That is the reality for thousands of families confronting repossession, a swift, silent operation in which a tow truck hauls away their vehicle without forewarning. The heartbreak is not just the loss of property, but the realization that everything from school drop-offs to critical medical appointments now stands in jeopardy. Repossession rates have climbed sharply, reflecting an era where borrowing terms became detached from real financial stability. Borrowers faced the lure of long-term payment plans and were told monthly installments would be manageable, only to be blindsided by a volatile economy. To complicate matters, job losses at major automakers pile on additional strain, pushing more individuals into delinquency. The emotional toll is crushing. Children witness their parents' distress, while households scramble to plan basic errands by public transport or sporadic carpooling. It is not just about the inconvenience. Repossessions can inflict a severe blow on credit scores. Individuals who were once able to afford a reliable vehicle find themselves blacklisted in future financing endeavors. For many, the car embodied a link to better prospects, a gateway to commuting opportunities, or a chance at upward mobility. Stripped of that vital resource, families stand on precarious ground. But while devastated households watch tow trucks fade into the distance, another existential threat emerges among the very brands that once defined the automotive sector: corporate collapse. Legendary names like Nissan, General Motors, and Ford, once synonymous with reliability, innovation, and American strength, now find themselves on dangerously unstable ground. Strategic misfires, supply chain chaos, and an unrelenting wave of global competition have left these giants staggering, their decades-old foundations cracking under modern pressures. Top executives bet everything on large-scale production of high-margin sport utility vehicles and pickup trucks, assuming that consistent consumer appetite would shield them from recessionary tremors. That strategy backfired spectacularly. New tariffs and trade disruptions sent manufacturing costs soaring. Inflation eroded household budgets. Interest rates climbed. Suddenly, the very vehicles that once guaranteed profits became showroom anchors, unsellable at sticker prices that now seemed absurdly out of reach. In the boardrooms, urgency has turned into panic. Shareholders demand immediate action. Should they ramp up electric vehicle investments, even as public interest wanes and infrastructure gaps persist, or cling to familiar combustion models, knowing they no longer align with regulatory mandates and evolving market expectations? The decisions are not just financial, they are existential. Entire production lines have been halted. Beloved nameplates face extinction. Engineers twiddle their thumbs on quiet factory floors, waiting for marching orders that may never come. Dealerships, too, are caught in the storm. Once bustling showrooms are eerily quiet, as even loyal buyers hesitate to trust brands they once adored. Decades of reputation building are dissolving in a matter of months. Service departments report declining visits. Financing offices struggle to move inventory. Confidence in legacy automakers, built on generations of trust, is starting to unravel. Desperate to adapt, these corporations now consider once unthinkable strategies: joint ventures with foreign automakers, licensing technology from startups, downsizing heritage divisions. Whispers of last-ditch electric vehicle rollouts and radical rebranding efforts circulate in board meetings and media leaks alike. But the early results aren't promising. Launches are delayed, recalls rise, consumer reviews highlight rushed quality and underwhelming performance. The revolution they hoped would restore them is instead exposing their inability to evolve fast enough. What was once viewed as a bold pivot into the future now looks more like a scramble for survival. As the automotive landscape continues to shift beneath their wheels, one chilling truth emerges: no name, no matter how iconic, is too big to fail in an industry being rewritten in real time. EVs, the promised land that became a no man's land. Billions have been invested in electric vehicle innovation, with promises of cleaner roads and smoother driving experiences. Enthusiasts once celebrated the possibility of silent commutes and reduced reliance on conventional fuels. Enthusiasm has faded, though, as sticker prices shot up beyond what most households can manage. Some electric pickup trucks cost nearly $100,000, and even moderate discounts fail to bring them within reach of average earners. These heavy price tags reflect soaring development costs, scarce battery materials, and supply chain disruptions tied to tariffs on core components. Buyers who had hoped to embrace an environmentally friendly lifestyle are discovering that monthly payments rival home mortgages. Occasional incentives, such as manufacturer rebates, do little to alleviate concerns about long-term maintenance or limited charging infrastructure in certain areas. A segment of consumers also worries that rapid technological changes could render their newly purchased electric vehicle obsolete. Practical concerns about battery longevity and repair costs amplify that anxiety, especially in a climate of financial uncertainty. Meanwhile, dealerships once eager to showcase electric models are rethinking their floor plans. Large electric sport utility vehicles remain unsold, even when cloaked in aggressive marketing campaigns. Potential buyers are skittish about straining personal budgets, and dealers are reluctant to stock too many pricey vehicles that will not move. Confidence has soured at precisely the moment electric vehicle makers hope to usher in a grand shift. Investors who banked on a swift electric revolution are now confronting a bleak reality: sticker shock, limited infrastructure, and shattered. No wonder the entire electric push feels like an abandoned promise, one that has left both dealers and consumers frustrated. This unraveling has pushed many dealerships to rely on wholesale auctions as a last-ditch route for salvaging costs. Yet that option has begun to collapse under its own weight. Wholesale Meltdown. Once a dependable haven for offloading surplus inventory, the wholesale auction arena has deteriorated into a grim spectacle of unmoving vehicles. Depressed auction prices are a stark contrast to the hopes of dealership managers who once counted on quick-turn transactions to recoup capital. Tariffs, negative consumer sentiment, and an overabundance of models have caused wholesale values to plummet at an alarming rate. Vehicles that used to fetch acceptable offers now sit idle, with bidding activity tapering off. Numbers gathered by regional trade associations point to a double-digit drop in average sale prices over the last quarter. Some dealerships unload entire fleets at a steep loss, just to reduce monthly financing charges tied to unsold inventory. This vicious cycle has left both small-town dealerships and large franchise networks reeling from the shock. Brand new sedans and sport utility vehicles lose thousands in value the moment they roll onto the auction floor. Sales managers who once viewed these auctions as a reliable safety valve now stand in disbelief. A sense of desperation has replaced the familiar hustle, as they scramble to find any buyer willing to pay a fraction of the initial sticker price. Lenders, too, are observing these developments with concern, since many dealerships rely on credit lines and floor plan loans to acquire stock. If units fail to move at auctions, financial institutions grow reluctant to extend fresh credit. Local auctions, previously bustling with competitive bidding, have been reduced to a few lukewarm offers. A meltdown in wholesale prices has cut off the last backdoor exit, prompting an unsettling ripple effect that slams into communities built around vehicle production and sales. It's a grim turning point, one that echoes far beyond the auction floor. Communities on the edge. Imagine walking through a place once anchored by the thrum of auto assembly lines and the buzz of dealership traffic. Those roads are eerily quiet now as vacant showrooms and shuttered supply depots reveal the toll inflicted by this collapsing market. Entire neighborhoods have been rattled by job cuts and vanishing economic opportunity, forcing local businesses to close or downsize. Cafes, bookstores, and hardware shops that relied on nearby factory employees are losing customers daily. In cities like Detroit, a tradition of automotive excellence has collided with weak consumer demand and punishing tariffs on essential parts. Assembly plants that hummed with activity have turned silent, driving away highly trained professionals seeking positions in more stable sectors. Tax revenue has dipped, leaving local governments grappling with tough decisions over public services such as transport, education, and law enforcement. School boards struggle to maintain quality programs without the once reliable contributions from the auto industry. Small enterprises dependent on foot traffic from auto workers and service technicians are struggling to remain afloat. Commercial landlords face sudden vacancies, and formerly lively blocks feel deserted. The sense of pride connected to building or selling vehicles has been replaced by collective anxiety. Some families, unsure about the next paycheck, relocate to chase scarce opportunities elsewhere, which weakens community bonds and accelerates neighborhood decline. Civic leaders attempt to spark confidence, but resilience requires a stable foundation, and that is precisely what the car market has erased. Many fear that the next challenge is not just an economic hurdle, but a growing psychological shadow that could sink consumer morale even further. panic on Main Street. Purchasing a car was once a straightforward act of aspiration or necessity. That decision now feels fraught with risk, as prospective buyers recoil from inflated financing terms, sluggish resale prospects, and swirling rumors about additional tariffs. Household budgets are stretched thin, intensifying the worry that a car loan might become an unmanageable burden. The process of visiting a dealership can provoke dread rather than excitement, undermining the entire business model. Conversations with friends and neighbors reinforce a sense of caution. Who wants to sink money into a sport utility vehicle that could lose a quarter of its value within months? Borrowers already bruised by negative equity from an earlier transaction question whether they can handle another loan that might balloon. The result is a freeze on many purchase decisions, depriving dealers of foot traffic and pushing them closer to insolvency. Sales teams attempt to revive the market through discounts and limited time offers, but anxious shoppers remain unconvinced. Subtle dread about monthly payments turns every test drive into a moment of second-guessing. Daily headlines about factory layoffs add an extra layer of hesitation, convincing potential customers that job security is not guaranteed. Deals that once felt enticing are now viewed as potential traps. With interest rates overshadowing the thrill of a new car smell, industry analysts warn that a prolonged confidence gap will hinder any swift turnaround. A functioning market depends on trust, yet that trust is slipping away. Manufacturers and dealerships are bracing themselves for an even more treacherous chapter as political battles over blame and bailouts gather steam. Political crossfire. Subsidies, bailouts, and tit-for-tat tariffs are tearing the automotive sector apart in ways few anticipated. Brokers and government offices sense an opportunity to boost their political standing by offering financial rescue packages to certain manufacturers or threatening punitive duties against overseas rivals. These moves may look bold on television, but behind the scenes, deals are forged with lobbyists who whisper promises of election support. Meanwhile, consumers wonder why showrooms remain packed with unsold sport utility vehicles while their loan payments keep rising. Manufacturers scramble to secure favor with influential lawmakers, fearing that a missed handshake or poorly timed press release could lead to ruin. In an attempt to preserve market share, executives bend to demands from trade officials and local representatives who tout job protection, even though they sometimes neglect actual workers. The reality is that political maneuvering often places brand survival above buyer well-being. Vehicles once priced within reach drift higher, thanks to sudden taxes or rearranged supply chains. Local residents see announcements of expensive revitalization plans, uncertain whether they will truly benefit. Critics argue that funneling tax money into struggling automakers only delays the reckoning. Others insist that intervention is vital to save countless livelihoods. This debate grows louder each day, setting the stage for confrontations that stretch from legislative halls to union rally points. Political leaders jostle to grab headlines, but the real drama is about to unfold, where workers unite in a powerful display of collective action. The labor battle for survival, strikes, walkouts, and the roar of unified voices now echo throughout production lines. Workers who once felt overlooked by policy decisions have joined forces, determined to secure fair wages, better working conditions, and essential benefits. Images of determined groups picketing outside locked gates dominate local news segments, while motorcades of displaced employees wind through industrial districts demanding accountability. This wave of labor unrest reflects deep-seated frustration at being treated as mere statistics in corporate boardrooms, their collective voice rising against decades of neglect. Union organizers are capitalizing on public empathy by sharing first-hand accounts of factory closings and the daily hardships facing workers. These protests extend far beyond disputes over paychecks. They challenge long-entrenched practices that have consistently marginalized assembly line crews whenever profits dip or cost-cutting measures hit. Demands now include stable contracts, comprehensive health care, and consistent scheduling that respects the dignity of labor. With every negotiation under the relentless glare of media scrutiny, setbacks on the picket line only fuel further resolve. Public opinion remains divided. Many applaud the workers' unity, pointing to historical instances when automakers benefited from generous government bailouts, yet failed to secure job stability. Others express concern that prolonged walkouts might hasten bankruptcies, leaving communities once built around a thriving auto industry bereft of economic opportunity. Meanwhile, company spokespeople argue that survival depends on ruthless cost reductions, while employees counter that loyalty and hard work deserve far more than precautionary pink slips in uncertain times. At a moment when global competition intensifies, foreign automakers are eyeing the vulnerabilities exposed at home, ready to challenge the very idea of domestic dominance. As industry giants and labor forces grapple with transformation and increasing external threats, the landscape of manufacturing and the economic future it represents seems to teeter on the brink. As labor movements gain momentum amid shifting power dynamics and mounting international pressure, one question remains: is the automotive industry ready to rebuild its foundation on the principles of fairness and respect, or will the relentless battle for survival force an irreversible change in how we value work? What do you think? Let's know down in the comments section. Thanks for watching, and I will see you there.